Good evening and welcome to Inside Government, a show produced for the spring 2024 semester here at Cayuga Community College and put on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Over the center of Genesee Street, from time to time near Hunter's Diner in Auburn, you may have noticed a banner asking for foster families to be recruited by Cayuga County. Tonight we have a planned discussion on the local foster care efforts with Wendy Armstrong, the Supervisor of Children Services for Cayuga County, Department of Social Services, and Janet Saco, the homefinder for DSS foster care program. And we want to talk about this. This is a show that was recommended by Christine Bianco, who heads your department. One of many things we're doing about the health department and social services. So ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
We're delighted to have you here to talk about a really important program, but for those who may not know, what is foster care?
So foster care services happen when, for a variety of reasons, it's no longer safe for the child to remain in the parent's home. So the judge would issue an order to remove the child and place the child in the county's custody in foster care.
So is it for permanent placement or is it temporary? Or I know your hope was to be permanent, but what's the time span?
So all of our efforts are directed towards reunification with the family to address the issues that brought the child into foster care that caused the child to be unsafe in the home, whether it's substance.
So it could be, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it could be temporary, but there is also a path forward for permanent as well.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
But you know, the goal is always to reunite the child with the family, and we do that by providing services to the family, whether it's substance abuse services, mental health services, domestic violence services. Often it's a combination.
This is to the family that's lost the child, not necessarily to the family who's taking a child in.
Yes, the biological family. So foster parents have a big role in that path and in reunifying families.
So does that include visitations?
Yes. So typically visitations start off as being supervised, based on what's safest for the child and what's in the best interest of the child at that time. Catholic Charities does our supervised visits, as well as the caseworkers will do supervised visits. Visitation can progress to being unsupervised, whether it's a few hours in the community, back in the biological home. That can progress to overnight visitation or a child discharge. So it's definitely a progress.
So I don't give you hard numbers, but give me some numbers of right now of how many children in a given year do you try to place? Or do you have, I shouldn't say try it, how many do you have to place?
So right now we have about a little over 100 children in foster care. So those are homes where they're the Cayuga County DSS foster homes. Some of those homes are relatives so that we have certified to become foster parents. And that also includes children where we had to look for therapeutic foster care placements for those children.
And what is therapeutic?
So therapeutic foster care is kind of a step above the DSS level of foster care. Those foster parents require more training. The agencies that provide the therapeutic services would push in more services than just the county level.
Would that be a child who would be considered, for lack of a better term, with special needs?
Yeah, so it could be a child that has like more severe behavioral issues, more medical issues. The trauma has caused this child to act out in different ways, school problems. We also have to look towards therapeutic when we don't have a county level foster home for the child available.
All right, I'm going to get off tangent here. So if a child right now is in need of foster care services and you don't have a home to place them in, where are they?
So we start by calling all of our certified foster parents.
Do you have a large list?
Right now we have 52 homes. 52 homes. About half of those homes, though, are only certified for their kinship relative homes. So they're homes that are certified for a specific child, a relative, a close family friend. They have that relationship.
So if I'm doing my math correctly, you have 25 that are open and available, but you have 100 kids still.
Yes.
Okay, so what
Yes.
happens to those other 75?
That's when we start to look for placements in therapeutic settings.
And so if I'm a 6-year-old little boy right now, and you don't have a house or a home for me, where am I physically right now? Other than you should be at school for another, as we're taping, for a little bit more. Where are you physically now?
So while we're finding homes, the children can be at the county office building with us. We have a great relationship with Champions for Life, so sometimes we can call over there and they'll allow us to bring the child over
But
there.
that's during the day.
Yes.
So where are they spending the night?
So typically we've always been able to find a foster home for that night. It might result in a movement the next day, or a foster parent may only be able to house that child through the weekend. But we're typically able to find
Do you
a
have
home.
an average age of a child in Cayuga County?
I don't. We get a range from.
Do they age out at some point?
So at 18, children can sign themselves out of foster care, and they actually are able to request to come back into foster care before their 21st birthday. So we do have some kids that are, freed for adoption. 18, they think they want to go out and live their lives, realize that it's not so easy if they don't have the right supports. They can, with the help of their attorney for the children, request to come back into foster care. We don't typically see that a lot, but it is
And
a
they're
possibility.
usually represented by the county in those cases, or no?
So they would be represented by a separate attorney.
Separate attorney.
Yes.
So cool title, homefinder. You don't work on HGTV. What is a homefinder?
So as a home finder, we are tasked with finding, recruiting foster homes. So we're out in the community at a variety of events, sitting, talking to people.
So you're advertising becoming a foster parent.
Yes, we are.
So what's the process for becoming a foster parent?
So the first step would be to call and talk to, I have a colleague, another home finder, so myself or the other my colleague, and we would start the process and we would make an appointment to come to your home. We would come check your home out. We would have a conversation, talk to you about your goals and what you see yourself doing, and then we would start the paperwork. And
Is it cumbersome paperwork? What's required?
it's a packet of paperwork, and it's pretty intense, and there are definitely some background checks that you're going to have to go through.
So do you go through a criminal background check?
Yes.
Okay.
A criminal, a CPS history background check.
You got to no apprehensions.
I'm sorry, a
Okay.
child protective background
Okay.
check. Basically, we're trying to make sure that you're
You're the right person.
yes, you're the right person, and then you would sit through a 10-week class.
And so classes are coming up, and we'll talk about this. And I know you'll give a phone number where people get more.
I
You
will.
might as well give the phone number now.
It is 315-253-1190.
Okay, we'll give that out a couple more times. But you do a 10-week course. Do you get charged for the course?
No.
Okay.
The course,
So what's the course entail for 10 weeks?
the course?
Is it once a week also, by the way?
It's once a week.
Okay.
We run them on Monday nights. We use a local church in Auburn. They have gifted us their space. And it's about 3 hours. So we start about 6 o'clock and we end about 8:39. And really that's it.
So do you go into a home to check it out first?
Yes.
Okay, so what's an inspection like?
An inspection looks like we're looking for safety. So we're making sure you have the proper fire extinguishers, your your gates, your child locks, your windows that are safe, your I don't know what else
Smoke
would be?
detectors.
Smoke detectors.
We have a lot of older homes in Cayuga County, so we also ask our foster parents to have their home tested for lead.
Which we talked about 4 days ago in the studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we also look for the space. There's a lot of requirements, a lot of regulations about what a bedroom space needs to look like for a foster child.
What's it need to look like?
So it needs to be a real bedroom with a door, space for a closet, dresser, a safe window to escape if there was a fire. And that also helps the home finders determine just how many children potentially could be placed in that home.
You mentioned a few seconds ago Cayuga County. So is this a county-wide issue or just central to the city of Auburn?
In terms of
Need and where children come from.
it's a statewide issue.
Okay.
There's not one county in New York State that has enough foster homes. We get emails probably at least once a
Weekly.
week, yeah, from other counties asking if we have a bed that they could borrow for a placement.
And do you?
We typically don't.
Okay. Do you send children to other counties?
We don't send children, we haven't had to utilize other local district foster homes. Some of those therapeutic agencies I talked about are located out of county. But this is a statewide need.
So let's talk about the characteristics of a family. So what are you looking at in a family that you meet at a public event, or what do you talk to a family about? What are you looking? What type of characteristics do you want them to have?
Well, a family just needs to be, it can look any way. There's no specific family.
Okay, so let's go through the checklist. Is there an age for a
21.
No, for a parent? If a parent wants to be, is there an age limit? Can somebody be in their 50s, 60s, 70s?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How about ethnicity?
No.
Race?
No.
Gay, lesbian?
No.
Do they have to be married?
No.
Okay, so go back to your characteristics. Sorry, I wanted to get those out. I know I just read a report, a checklist from the state, and I know those are all things that, but some people may not know that.
I do want to add that, so those requirements, the fingerprinting, the child protective clearances, those are mandated for anybody over the age of 18. So if you have, as a potential foster parent, a 18-year-old child, a college student, they would also need to be fingerprinted, go through those same those background checks. They wouldn't have to take the foster parent certification classes, but they would have to do those kind of background checks.
Do you have to have a minimum income?
You do have to have an income.
Okay.
There's no minimum, but you're not becoming a foster parent to make money. You
often hear that charge.
Yes.
That is not the case. Am I correct?
That is absolutely not the case.
Okay. People aren't taking 5 foster children in so that they can just live off.
No.
Do you pay? So I guess that leads to this question: do you pay a foster family?
They do. They do receive a per diem for each child, and that's depending on the child's age and the level of need.
So let me go back to my favorite 6-year-old.
Yeah.
6-year-old, what's a per diem?
So if it's just a typical 6-year-old, no medical issues, no behavioral issues, I believe it's around $35 if it's a 6-year-old who...
But that covers food, clothing, items of that nature. Okay.
Yep. Everything that a typical parent would provide for that child, that's what that money is used for. If it's a 6-year-old with an autism diagnosis, that's going to be a higher rate because the need's higher, the levels of supervision is higher, things like that. So
let me go back. Sorry, got off all the criteria. Okay. So go back. Tell me what type of family you're looking for.
So we're looking for a family that is a good family that understands foster care is about reunification. That is what I really look for.
So this is not somebody who is thinking, oh, if I go to the foster care system, I can directly adopt a child. That's a different issue.
That is, we tend to not want to see people come just because they want to adopt. We push reunification. We want them to be able to have a good relationship with the biological parents because it's in the best interest for everybody involved.
How long is your average placement? Do you have any idea?
How
short or how long? You've been there with the county how long?
15 years.
And you've been
3 years.
3 years. So, from your personal experience, short is how short, and how long is long?
It can be a matter of a week.
Okay.
And
do you get parents who sign up or families to sign up as foster parents to do that shorter period of time?
We have foster parents that will basically do whatever's asked of them. Thankfully, we do we do need foster parents that are willing to do that quick kind of turnaround. We do a lot of work in looking for relatives. Ideally, we're looking for relatives that can support the biological family right from the first time that the CPS report is called in. But in the case where a child's brought into foster care, we always look for relatives that can step in and support the child. Children do better when they're placed with relatives. We can certify those relatives as foster parents. So sometimes we need a couple of days to do that. Sometimes we need a week. Sometimes there's a dad in a different county that we weren't aware of until the child's already in foster care. So we call those kind of like the respite foster parents, a shorter term. Sometimes, we plan like, oh, we have this wonderful relative. They're going to be a great resource for the child. For whatever reason, it doesn't happen. So sometimes those potential short-term placements become longer-term placements.
And how long is the long-term? How long is the longest you would normally go?
So there's not an easy answer for that, especially when you get into the legal aspect of it.
But could they go a year? Could they go beyond a year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So usually at the 15-month mark, there's legislation called the Adoption and Safe Families Act, which basically was put in place so kids don't linger in foster care. So 15 out of the most recent 22 months, if the parents have not addressed those concerns, the county can take steps to terminate their parental rights.
And I'm not sure how I would work this, but how often does that occur where you're at the 15-month period where you say, okay, we now need to take these steps? Do you do a lot of this?
I don't have numbers for you. We have done a lot of them.
Is that a last resort?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So those are cases where, for whatever reason, the biological family have not completed services, so they haven't addressed their whatever it was, substance abuse issues and concerns, mental health concerns, whatever caused the child to be unsafe in the home hasn't been addressed and rectified.
So going back to that, you have 50 families or 50 homes that are available, which is far short of what your need is in an average year. So how does somebody want to talk to you right now? Well, why should they want to be a foster parent?
Well, the need is so great right now, and it's very rewarding to see these kids come in and then just change. It's rewarding. And you get to help the biological parents along the way too, because sometimes they need more help than the kids.
So if you had a number of how many families, in a perfect world, you would need no families or enough. So let's go to the second. How many more families do you need or no location? Because you said of those 50, 25 are specific to a connection to a child.
Yes.
So let's take them off the table because they're not. So you're really dealing with 25, going back to that original number, and I haven't even gotten into siblings yet. We'll get to that in a minute. So, so how do you, what's the number you need?
Ideally, I would like to see 10 new families for each class at least.
Is that your goal every year, to
Yes.
recruit 10? And do people stay in do they stay foster parents beyond, say, a year or two or several? Forget the adoption pathway, because my assumption is they get to the adoption pathway, there's not a high likelihood they would continue to be a foster, or isn't it?
We have some that continue.
They've done both.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you add 10 a year, you're still short.
Yes.
Okay.
So we do at least 2 classes a year. So ideally, that would be 20 new families a year. Again, it's it's not like kids come in, they are in a home for a certain time period, and you can, count on when they're leaving. So we have families that have been foster parents for years, they've adopted, and they're still open. There are state regs how many children can be placed in a home. There's obviously limitations on the size of your home, and you could have a home that could potentially take in 6 children, but the one child they have has a lot of needs where it wouldn't be safe to put other children in the home.
Do you try to keep them to geography so that if a child grew up, I'm just going to say in Moravia,
Yes.
you'd like to keep them in Moravia? So do you have, of the 25 that are available, again, let's go to the available, are they distributed throughout the county, or do you have areas of pockets where, you know, we have nobody in Conquest, or we have nobody in Sopronius, or we have nobody in Auburn? I know that's not the case, but
Yeah.
where's your highest need of people that you could, geography-wise, do you have an area?
I don't think we have a specific area. We do have homes spread throughout the county. You know, we never know where a child is going to be, what their community is going to be, but we do always try to keep them in their current community, their home-based community.
So I want to talk about family supports again, going back to that, but I want to talk about criteria because you sent me a nice email that said this is our toughest growth. So let's deal with older children tend to be tougher to place. I can figure out what the obvious reason, but tell me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants the cute little baby that's coming in. Kids usually 10 years.
What, nobody wants to deal with a moody teenager? I'm shocked.
Absolutely.
Or thrilled.
And, you know, especially a teenager that is being taken out of their community, their friends, their school district possibly, and being placed in your home. Plus, that teenager's gone through who knows how many years of
Right.
trauma.
So teens are tough.
Teens are.
You mentioned infants. Do you have that many infants that you place?
It really varies, but we do have.
Do you have some in the system right now?
Yes,
that
we
you-
do.
You do. A handful, a lot?
We probably have, I would say, maybe 10 under
Yeah.
2 right
Yeah.
now.
Really, and you have families that will step up. I'm just surprised because to me, sometimes an infant is, I don't want to say the word worse, but it's tougher.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to get in trouble now. It's tougher to deal with than a moody teenager. That's a lot. I mean, everything from formula. I'm assuming when we're talking about this is somebody who needs formula,
Yes.
has
Diapers.
other-ish diapers and
Daycare.
daycare. So you have a need for those families as well.
We do. Really, any family that's willing to open their home and help, we would absolutely accept.
So the other item is siblings, because often there are, is it usually just two, or are you talking a lot of cases where multiples?
I had a family that I worked with personally. There were 6 children in the family. And amazingly,
How do you place 6 children?
initially they were placed in separate homes, but we, you know, when we have to do that, just because of resources, first of all, we have the foster parents. They're communicating with each other. You know, sibling relationship is one of the most important relationships in our lifetime. So we try very hard to have them communicating with each other, seeing each other as often as possible. But that particular family, one of the foster parents actually changed around their whole home, changed a den into a new bedroom, and actually had all 6 siblings in that home. That's not the typical way things happen, but you know, people who have, you know,
Do these parents ever get recognized?
we do have.
I know you haven't. There's a federal award, and I know a couple of years ago somebody went from, I think, Moravia to Washington. This is mostly before your time, but during your term there, it was recognized, I don't know, by a member of Congress at that time for their work for Moravia. Do you have? How do you recognize? Sometimes they don't want to be recognized. I get that part.
Yeah.
But this is such a great program and such an important program. Sometimes recognition is a factor.
Yeah. So we do have our foster parent appreciation dinner. Last year we held it at the Springside. We had a ton of businesses throughout the community donate, you know,
So was it
gift
just
cards.
parents that came, or parents and families?
It was just the parents,
Just
just
parents,
the
okay.
foster parents. So it
who's
was
watching the kid? No, I'm just
yeah, it was, well, it's a nice
Well,
night out for them,
okay.
away from the kids. So we had a lot of local businesses donate gift certificates. We had a local hotel donate a night away, and we were able to raffle off those things. So we have that. And I don't know how many times a day we call and just the verbal appreciations from.
So of siblings, I just want to finish up on siblings. Do you have, right now on your list, how many sets or more, set or plus, of siblings do you have? Do you have a lot?
I wouldn't say a lot. Typically, we have 2 or 3 in a sibling group. We've been pretty lucky that we will be able to place maybe 2 together, 1 in a different home.
But the goal is to get them all.
Yes.
Forget the 6 is an outlier.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But your goal. So let's go back to support. So I want to talk about the training that you're doing on March 25th, and it's not too late for people to sign up for that, and they can call where?
315-253-1190.
Okay, we're going to give that out in a couple minutes as well. If somebody's going to do the training there, what's covered in 10 weeks?
In 10 weeks, we are discussing so many things. We're talking about trauma and the effect on the brain. We're talking about how the process, basically, walking them through it very, very thoroughly, so there are no surprises. Talking about
promises. There will be no surprise. So in doing something like that, when you have, so how many groups do you have? Will you hope to get signed up for the March 25th?
I said 10
is our hope.
family.
And how many do you have right now?
I think we have 5.
Okay, so of those 5 to 10, how many will make it through the program? Because you're going to have a breakage level where somebody just says
Yeah.
at some point, this isn't for me. I'll do something else. I'll do something else in my community. I'll do something else for families. This just isn't for me.
We
So,
usually lose 2 to 3 families throughout.
okay, but you're still getting, you're gaining more than you're losing. And, you're netting more than you're losing often, correct? That's the hope.
Typically.
Some of those families are also those relative families that we're talking about,
Okay.
because relative
They have to do.
they have to do the process can be look a little bit different for them. So with the relative families, we can do what's called emergency certification, where we kind of speed through the clearances, the home inspections, things like that. Because if there's a family that is willing to take in their kin, we don't want them in a stranger's
Right.
foster home.
So 3 last items. One is once a child, the 6-year-old, is placed, how often, I'm assuming as a are you the home finder visiting them or somebody else visiting?
No.
And how often do you go over to a home?
So every case is assigned a case manager. That case manager sees that child at least once a month, often way more, because we're transporting them for the visitations, meeting with the foster parents, but at least once a month.
All right. So I wanted to ask you 2 final questions. This is the only time I ever told you questions have asked. So either tell me or tell them. Why should, and you're going to give the phone number in a moment, but why should somebody become a foster parent?
I think the biggest reason is just that you have that home that you'd like to open up and give back to the community. There are a lot of children in the community that are in foster care, have been in foster care, or at risk of becoming foster care. These are your children's friends, your neighbors. So really being able to give back to the community is a huge reason.
So before we go to the last, how to find out, is there a parent there's a I know you said you have to have an income. Is there often a parent that's not working because they're taking in a foster child? So there's one working parent, one non-working? Not that being a stay-at-home is not working. I'm not saying that. I want to make that clear. What I'm saying is there somebody home because sometimes I think of the infant, I think of a 6-year-old, I think of a teenager. Anywhere in that spectrum, would you have a stay-at-home parent, one of the two being, if it's 2?
Typically, those dynamics are already in place.
Okay.
We don't have many parents that can afford, if you're 2 full-time working parents that can afford to, want to become a stay-at-home mom and lose, or parent and lose that income. So we do have homes where there's one parent that is a stay-at-home. Those are nice.
All right, make your pitch. How does somebody find out about the courses, but come to see you or you go see them to become a foster parent?
Yes. You just give me a call and we go from there. 315-253-1190.
And you'll set up a visit with them to
Yes.
walk them through the whole process. How
Yes.
often do you offer the courses a year? Is it once a year?
We
or-
do fall and spring.
Okay. So how many were you able to sign up in the fall this last year?
Ooh, 5?
Okay. Still, it's a positive number for the county.
Yes.
Do you have many drop out after a while?
That don't continue
Right.
being certified. We do have some for various reasons. One,
But something tells me once they're into this, they're going to continue to do it.
many do, but I think some people do quickly figure out that it's not for them. Maybe they got into it hoping that they would, adopt a child.
Or they may have children of their own.
They may have children of their own, so you really need to think about how that affects your biological children, having a foster child coming in the home, leaving the home. We have some foster parents that just kind of need a break, and we, respect that. And
And they can come back at some other day.
yeah, well, they don't get uncertified. We just don't call them as much.
Right. And they're always on your Rolodex one way or the other. Well, we do want to
Absolutely.
thank both of you. Wendy Armstrong, the Supervisor of Children Services for the County Department of Social Services, as well as Janet Saco, who is the homefinder for
Yes.
the Department of Social Services. Thanks for talking to us about foster care and how important it is. You can find more out by calling.
315-253-1190.
Ladies, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We will return in just a moment with the Seward House's Director of Education, Jeff Ludwig, to talk about one of Central New York's premier museums that reopened last week. We'll also be here on Thursday with Assemblyman John Lamondis, who will give us a update from the state, as well as Karen Belcher. We're rescheduling an interview with her from the Food Bank of Central New York to talk about what services they provide in Cayuga County, which is part of a 19-county area that they service. In the coming weeks, we also will have Senator Rachel May will be here. New County Administrator Steve Lynch will be in the studio, as well as Jeff Digert and City Comptroller Mary Beth Leeson. We'll be doing, I just heard within the last hour, we'll be doing a program on the Women and Children, the WIC program here in the county, as well as be having some candidates who are running in primaries in June in the studios. We'd like to know your ideas for guests or questions. You can send them to cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. Stick around for Beyond the Front Page with Jeff Ludwig. Otherwise, we will see you back in the studio with Assemblyman Lamondis on Thursday.